What happens when you stuff a 440 big block into a lightweight Plymouth Barracuda? You get one of the most insane factory muscle cars of the 60s, a car so fast, so raw, it was practically a street-legal drag racer. This is the 1969 Plymouth Barracuda 440, a car that didn't just break the rules, it set them on fire and left them in the rear view. Stick around, because today we're diving deep into one of Mopar's most legendary sleepers. Somewhere on the Jersey Turnpike, sweating through my shirt in the July heat, it hit me. This car was a gas-guzzling monster. The 1969 Plymouth Barracuda 440 didn't just sip fuel, it chugged it like a frat boy at a kegger. I'd already stopped 3 times to refill the tank with Sunoco 260, and I wasn't even halfway through my 250-mile trek from DC to North Jersey. This wasn't some cushy cruiser. No air conditioning, no power steering, no disc brakes, just raw, unfiltered American muscle. And when I mashed the throttle leaving a rest stop, the rear tires erupted in smoke, the car fishtailing wildly, right in front of a state trooper. The cop wasn't amused. "What's all the noise about?" he barked, eyeballing the Cuda like it had just robbed a bank. But after a quick chat about Superstock magazine and the car's limited production status, he let me off with a warning. A few minutes later, I was back on the road, grinning like an idiot, thinking about cold beer and faster women. Because in 1969, excess wasn't just encouraged, it was mandatory. The ultimate sleeper, the Cuda 440, was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Mine wasn't some flashy, blood-red beast. It was painted in puke green invisible. Plymouth's official color name? Probably not, but it fit. The wheels were hidden under full hubcaps, clinging to puny 14-inch steel rims. No one would guess this thing packed a 440 cubic inch V8 under the hood. But this wasn't just any 440. The press fleet car I'd snagged from Plymouth's New York bureau had been massaged by the factory's best. Kerry Smith and Al Kirschenbaum, Mopar's high-performance whisperers, had tweaked it to within an inch of its life. Rejetted carb, recurved distributor, colder spark plugs, and a fast advance ignition curve meant this thing ran harder than a showroom stock model. A beast that didn't play nice. Driving this car was like wrestling a bear. The steering was heavy, the brakes were mediocre at best, and the weight distribution, 57% on the front wheels, made it handle like a drunken hippo. Stomp the gas in the dry, and the rear end would step out. Try it in the rain? You were asking for a trip into the nearest ditch. The 440 itself was a masterpiece of brute force. Based on the raised Block 426 wedge, it had been bored out, fitted with better heads, a bigger carb, and a lumpier cam. Officially rated at 375 horsepower, it probably made more, especially after Kirschenbaum's tweaks. But stuffing that engine into a mid-sized A-body was like fitting a gorilla into a phone booth. There was no room for luxuries like power steering or AC. The exhaust manifold on the driver's side twisted like a pretzel just to clear the steering shaft. The brakes? Tiny 10-inch drums that faded faster than my patience in traffic. Drag strip dominance. At York US 30 drag strip, I put the Cuda to the test. On a sweltering July afternoon, with the air thick enough to chew, the best I could manage was a 13.89 at 103 mph. Not bad for a street car, but I knew it had more in it. The problem? Traction. Or rather, the lack of it. Even with 50 PE in the front tires and 30 in the rears, the damn thing would light up the tires through first and second gear. A set of slicks and cooler air would have dropped it into the low 13s, maybe even high 12s. But this was a street car, not a race car. And on the street, it was pure, unadulterated chaos. A rare piece of Mopar history. Only about 400. Cuda 440s were built in 1969, all assembled at Hearst's facility in Michigan. They started life as 383 cars, but before delivery, the engines were yanked out and replaced with the monstrous 440. No manual transmission was offered. Chrysler knew the A-body's rear end wouldn't survive a 4-speed behind that much torque. The car I drove met a tragic end. Kirschenbaum later told me he'd been cruising Brooklyn's Belt Parkway when a front tire went soft. The slow ratio steering couldn't save it. The nose-heavy Cuda plowed into a guardrail, mangling the fender, grille, and bumper. But not all Cuda 440s met such fates. Today, collectors like Chris Tatey keep these beasts alive. His 69 is a pristine, numbers-matching survivor with 90,000 miles. Still tight, still clean, still terrifying to drive. And unlike some garage queens, he actually drives it. Because what's the point of owning a muscle car if you're not going to scare yourself with it? Yes. Final thoughts. The 1969 Cuda 440 wasn't refined. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't even particularly safe. But that wasn't the point. This was a car built for one thing: unapologetic, tire-shredding, gas-gulping madness.